I once thought heartbreak belonged only to the melodramas my mother used to watch on TV. But then I lived it. It's ridiculous. Really imagine spending an entire semester believing you were in love with one person, only to discover that the words that warmed you every morning weren't even theirs. The first note appeared like magic, tucked under the lid of my coffee cup at the student-run cafe. I thought it was just a random kindness, good luck on your exam today. You'll do great. But then there was another the next day and the day after that. Each written in the same looping handwriting. Each carrying a gentleness I didn't know I craved until it was there, folded quietly into my routine. I assumed it was Kyle. Kyle, the charming senior in my sociology class. The one who leaned over my desk with easy grins and called me, buddy, like we'd known each other forever. It made sense, didn't it? Kyle was bold, playful, the kind of guy who left trails of attention wherever he walked. Why wouldn't he slip me little affirmations? Why wouldn't he notice me when I'd been orbiting his laugh for months? But the truth wasn't Kyle at all. It was the boy behind the counter, the one who never seemed to finish his sentences, whose apron was always dusted with flour. Ethan. I didn't know it then. I was blind, or maybe willfully so. The cafe where I worked part-time sat at the edge of campus, a repurposed brick building with tall windows that caught every shade of the afternoon sun. Students wandered in with laptops, professors came for their black coffee, and somewhere in that constant hum of milk steamers and clinking cups, Ethan and I had become coworkers. He was quiet, reliable, never late. He carried this aura of calm, even when the line curled out the door. And I was the opposite. Loud, restless, forever fumbling the register buttons or spilling foam down my apron. We balanced each other, I guess. Or maybe he just tolerated me the way patient people tolerate hurricanes. At first, I didn't notice the way his eyes lingered when I laughed too hard, or the way his hands brushed the counter a little closer to mine when he passed me the shift notebook. But when those notes started arriving, I convinced myself they were Kyle's, not Ethan's. Because Kyle was safe to imagine, and Ethan was too close. Too real. By mid-semester, the notes became the rhythm of my mornings. You looked tired yesterday. Don't forget to rest. Your voice matters more than you think. You make the cafe feel like home. Each one lodged itself into the empty spaces inside me, filling corners I didn't even know were hollow. And Kyle, oblivious, kept flashing his teeth and patting my shoulder, never once mentioning the words I clung to so desperately. But I didn't let myself question it. I didn't want to ruin the illusion, because what if the notes stopped? What if they weren't for me at all? The turning point came one late November evening, when the cafe was closing and the campus outside lay drowned in fog. The others had left early, and it was just Ethan and me sweeping crumbs off tables. I found a folded slip of paper tucked beneath the espresso machine. My name written on it. My heart kicked like a startled horse. I opened it. This isn't easy for me. I just wanted you to know I see you. More than you think. And there, at the bottom, a small doodle of a coffee cup. Ethan's doodle. I'd seen him draw the same thing in the margins of order sheets, absent-minded spirals around tiny cups. The world tilted. I looked up, and Ethan froze mid-sweep, his face draining as though I'd caught him committing a crime. It wasn't Kyle. It had never been Kyle. It was him. My chest tightened with something raw, something both furious and tender. All semester, I'd been building a love story in my head with the wrong lead actor. All semester, I'd ignored the boy who had been there every morning, scribbling pieces of his heart into scraps of paper, praying I'd notice. And now, standing in the soft hum of the empty cafe, with the fog pressing against the windows like a secret trying to get in, I finally saw him. Ethan, with his uncertain eyes and trembling hands. Ethan, who loved me in silence. I didn't say anything at first. My mouth opened, but the words stayed stuck in my throat, caught between disbelief and something dangerously close to hope. Ethan's grip on the broom tightened until his knuckles whitened. He looked like a kid caught stealing candy, not a boy who had been slipping pieces of his heart into my life for months. You, I managed, my voice breaking the silence. It was you. He didn't answer. His gaze flickered down to the note in my hand, then back up to my face. His lips parted, but no sound came out. I thought of every morning I had clutched those words like oxygen. Every time I'd looked at Kyle and told myself he sees me, he understands me. And now this quiet, careful boy, standing 3 feet away, he was the one who had written them. Ethan finally set the broom against the wall. His shoulders slumped, as if some invisible weight had been too heavy to carry any longer. "I didn't mean for you to find out like this," he whispered. The room tilted. "Find out? You've been God. You've been writing to me this whole time, and you let me think it was someone else." His expression cracked. "I never said it was Kyle. You just assumed." The truth burned hotter than accusation. He was right, I had assumed. I wanted it to be Kyle because Kyle was easy, flashy, safe in the way crushes on unattainable people always are. But Ethan was terrifying because he was real. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The cafe was too quiet, the hum of the refrigerator in the back pressing in like static. "Why?" I finally asked. My voice was softer now, fragile. "Why hide?" Ethan's eyes darted away, settling on the floor. "Because I didn't think you'd want them if you knew they were from me." The words hit harder than I expected. They were soaked in something sharp: fear, insecurity, shame. He said them like a confession, like an apology for existing. My chest tightened. "That's not fair." He looked up then, and for the first time I saw the fight in his gaze. "Fair? You think it's fair for me to stand behind this counter every day and pretend I don't feel anything? To watch you chase after someone who doesn't even notice how you light up when you talk about your music? Or how you can't drink coffee without 3 sugars? Do you know what it's like to want to tell you everything but knowing if I did, I might lose even the little I have?" His voice cracked on the last word, but he didn't look away. It was my turn to fall silent, the note still trembling in my hand. Because the truth was, I had noticed him, just not in the way I'd let myself admit. That night, we didn't resolve anything. I left with my head spinning, Ethan's words chasing me through the foggy campus streets. I barely noticed the way the lampposts cast pools of gold on the pavement, or the crunch of dead leaves under my sneakers. Instead, I replayed his voice over and over. "I didn't think you'd want them if you knew they were from me." The next morning, the notes were gone. For the first time in weeks, my coffee cup was just a coffee cup. No folded paper tucked under the lid. No scribbled handwriting. Just silence. The absence was louder than anything else. It followed me to class, settled heavy on my desk, wrapped itself around my chest like a band too tight to breathe. Kyle was still Kyle, loud, careless, bright in ways that filled a room. He leaned against my desk, joked about the professor's monotone voice, asked if I wanted to grab lunch. And for the first time, I saw him clearly. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't unkind. But he also wasn't the boy who had memorized the exact way I liked my coffee. He wasn't the boy who had written "Your voice matters" in blue ink when I felt invisible. No, that was Ethan. And the realization hit me with the kind of force that left no room for denial. But realizing and acting are 2 very different things. Days passed. Ethan avoided me during shifts, his movements clipped and professional. He spoke only when necessary. "Orders ready. Can you restock the cups?" His voice a monotone echo of the boy I thought I knew. The distance carved at me. I tried to talk to him once after a shift. He was tying his apron strings, his eyes fixed on the knot like it was the most important task in the world. "Ethan," I said, my voice low. He didn't look up. "We're closed. If you're hungry, there's leftover muffins." "That's not," I swallowed. "That's not what I wanted to say." Finally, his hands stilled. He lifted his gaze, cautious, guarded. I froze. Every word I'd rehearsed dissolved under that stare. I wanted to tell him I was sorry, that I hadn't meant to hurt him, that his notes meant more to me than I knew how to explain. But the words refused to come. Instead, I whispered, "Good night," and walked out. The first snow arrived a week later, soft flakes swirling over campus like the world had been brushed clean. Students threw snowballs in the quad, laughter ringing out in the cold air. But all I could think about was the boy I had pushed too far away. I still had the notes, every single one. tucked into the pocket of my backpack, creased from being unfolded too many times. I read them late at night, my dorm lit only by the glow of my desk lamp, the words pulling me toward something I didn't know how to face. Maybe I was a coward. Or maybe I just didn't know how to rewrite the story I'd built in my head. But I knew one thing for certain: Ethan had seen me in ways no one else ever had. And if I let that slip away, I might never forgive myself. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening, right before winter break. The cafe was bustling, students ordering last-minute lattes before heading home. I was behind the counter, struggling with the espresso machine, when I felt the weight of someone's stare. Ethan. For the first time in days, his gaze met mine, steady and unflinching. I don't know what he saw in my face: regret, maybe, or desperation, but something in his expression shifted. His lips pressed into a thin line, his eyes flickering with something I couldn't name. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't keep pretending. I had to tell him, even if it meant shattering everything. I should have spoken sooner. Maybe if I had, the silence between us wouldn't have grown so thick it felt like a wall. The cafe buzzed with orders, the clatter of cups, the hiss of steam. My hands moved automatically, grinding beans, steaming milk, while my mind churned with a single thought: say something, anything. But Ethan stayed on the far end of the counter, focused on wiping down tables. His movements were precise, almost mechanical, as if he could scrub away the tension that clung between us. When the last customer left and the doorbell chimed softly in the empty space, I realized it was now or never. "Ethan," I said, my voice unsteady. He froze mid-wipe, the rag clenched in his fist. Slowly, he turned, his face unreadable. "We need to talk." He gave a short laugh, sharp and humorless. "Now you want to talk?" The rag dropped onto the table. He leaned against it, folding his arms across his chest. His eyes locked on mine, and for once, I couldn't look away. "Yes," I whispered. "All right." His tone was flat. "So talk." The words tangled inside me. I thought of every note, every careful phrase written in his looping handwriting. I thought of the morning I found one that said, "Don't forget you're worth more than the grade you get today." I thought of how those words had held me together when I was too close to falling apart. But all I managed was, "Why did you stop?" His eyebrows lifted. "That's what you want to know?" "Yes." His jaw tightened. "Because you weren't reading them." "Not really. You were reading someone else into them. Do you have any idea how much it hurt watching you smile at Kyle, thinking it was him all along?" I flinched. I didn't. My throat closed. "I didn't mean to." Ethan's laugh was bitter. "Yeah, that's the thing. You never meant to. But you did." He grabbed his coat from the hook near the back door. The sound of the zipper cut through the silence like a blade. "I can't keep doing this," he said. His voice cracked, softer now, but no less sharp. "I can't keep giving and giving when you don't even see me." And then he was gone, the bell over the door jangling in his wake, leaving me standing in the half-lit cafe with nothing but the hollow ache of his words. The days that followed were unbearable. Ethan didn't quit, but he might as well have. At shifts, he kept his distance. He passed me drinks without looking at me, handed over the shift log with clipped movements. Conversations shrank to single words. "Yes. Done. Okay." The absence of his notes became a ghost haunting me. I caught myself reaching for them, searching under coffee lids like an addict craving a fix, only to find nothing but cardboard and foam. Kyle, oblivious, invited me to a Christmas party at his frat house. He slung an arm over my shoulder like we were best friends. For a second, I almost let myself believe that was what I wanted: loud music, cheap beer, a hand that didn't tremble when it touched me. But the truth was cruel, because even in that crowded room, my eyes searched for Ethan. The first real snowstorm hit right before break. Classes were canceled, streets buried in white. I trudged across campus to the cafe, half expecting it to be closed, but the lights glowed faintly through frosted windows. Inside, it was nearly empty, just Ethan behind the counter, wiping down an already spotless surface. Our eyes met, and for a long moment, neither of us moved. I walked up slowly, my breath fogging in the warm air. "Hey! Hey!" he echoed, guarded. I didn't think anyone would be here. Storm kept most people home. Guess I drew the short straw. I hesitated, then slid onto a stool across from him. "I could stay. Keep you company." He gave me a long look, then sighed. "Suit yourself." The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. I stared at the snow piling against the windows, wishing words were easier. Finally, I pulled a crumpled note from my pocket, the one with the doodled coffee cup. I laid it gently on the counter between us. "I kept them," I said. "All of them." His hands stilled. His eyes flickered down to the paper, then back up to mine. "Why?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Because they mattered." My throat tightened. "Because you mattered." I was too stupid to realize it was you all along. The confession hung in the air, fragile and raw. Ethan's lips parted, but he didn't speak. His fingers brushed the edge of the note, tentative, like he was afraid it might burn him. "Ethan," I said softly, "I see you now. I swear I do." For the first time in weeks, something flickered in his eyes, hope. Fear, maybe both. But before he could answer, the lights flickered and went out, plunging us into darkness. The storm had knocked out the power. We sat in the sudden silence, the cafe lit only by the faint glow of snow-reflected light through the windows. I could barely make out his silhouette across the counter. "Great," he muttered. "Perfect timing. Guess we're stuck here for a while." He didn't reply, but he didn't move away either. I reached across the counter, slowly, giving him time to pull back. My fingers brushed his. Warmth spread through me like a fire catching in the dark. "Ethan," I whispered, "please don't shut me out." This time he didn't pull away. His hand trembled under mine, but he let it stay. And in the middle of that powerless cafe, with snow howling outside and silence pressing close, something shifted between us. Not forgiveness. Not yet, but the beginning of it. I didn't sleep that night. We stayed in the cafe, wrapped in blankets left behind by some student club, sipping lukewarm cocoa from paper cups. He didn't say much, but he didn't push me away. That was enough. I watched him doze against the couch, his head tilted back, his lashes dark against pale skin. And I realized I didn't just want his notes. I wanted him, all of him. The boy who scribbled encouragement in blue ink. The boy who stayed late to clean when no one else would. The boy who saw me even when I refused to see myself. And for the first time, I knew I wasn't going to let him go. Not now. Not ever. I once thought love was supposed to be simple. Boy meets boy. Boy falls for boy. End credits roll with a neat, happy bow. But the truth? Love is messy. It's 1,000 unsent words, 100 misunderstandings, and the terrifying choice to keep showing up anyway. That winter storm night in the cafe was the start of something neither of us could undo. When the power came back the next morning, reality returned with it, heavy and complicated. We didn't magically fall into each other's arms. We still had fears, still had the weight of a campus that whispered, still had Cal circling around me with questions I didn't know how to answer. But we had something more important. We had a chance. When classes resumed, Cal finally cornered me outside lecture hall. His grin was strained, almost brittle. "So you and Ethan, huh?" he asked, as if testing the waters. The words hit harder than I expected. Not cruel, not mocking, just curious. But curiosity could be dangerous too. I swallowed. "Yeah," I said. My voice shook, but I didn't take it back. "Me and Ethan." Cal studied me for a beat, then clapped me on the shoulder. "Good. He's a solid guy. Treat him right." And just like that, the fear I'd carried for weeks cracked open. The world didn't end. The sky didn't fall. Someone knew and it was okay. But it wasn't the world I was most afraid of. It was my parents. When spring break rolled around, Ethan offered to drive me home. The trip stretched for hours down long highways, the radio playing softly, his hand brushing mine on the gearshift like a secret promise. I don't remember the exact words I used when I told my parents. Something clumsy, something terrified. But I remember Ethan's hand squeezing mine under the table, steady and warm. There was silence, then questions, then tears. My mother cried because she worried the world would be cruel. My father stared out the window for a long time before finally turning back to me. "You're still my son," he said. His voice was rough, but it was enough. That night, Ethan held me as I cried tears of relief, of fear, of everything tangled together. By the time finals rolled around, Ethan and I were no longer shadows circling each other. We were something real. We walked across campus together, sometimes with our hands brushing, sometimes with them clasped tight. People looked, some whispered, but more often they just kept walking. We weren't a secret anymore, and God, that felt like freedom. The last note he ever gave me wasn't hidden under a coffee cup. It wasn't scribbled on the back of an order sheet. It was placed directly in my hand, under the cherry blossoms that bloomed at the edge of campus. His handwriting was the same looping scrawl I'd memorized, but this time the words were simple. No more hiding. I love you. When I looked up, Ethan was watching me with that quiet, patient gaze that had undone me from the very beginning. And for once, I didn't hesitate. I leaned in, kissed him soft and certain, and let the world see. Love didn't fix everything. We still had exams to pass, jobs to keep, futures to figure out. There were days when fear clawed back, when the weight of stairs pressed too heavy, when old insecurities resurfaced. But now we carried it together. And maybe that's what love really is. Not perfection, not certainty, just two people choosing each other, over and over, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. On the day of graduation, I slipped one last note into Ethan's hand. "You were the story all along." He laughed, kissed me in front of everyone, and tucked the note into his pocket like he would never let it go. And for the first time in a long time, I believed in happy endings. Not the kind written in neat bows, but the kind you build messy, fragile, beautiful. The kind that belongs to us. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.